Okay, so I was saying that we're in like this void of energy. Like, I don't know, everything feels like we're in a bubble and has for a couple of days. Like nothing's moving. Our business is in a stall. Like everything's just stagnant. And yesterday we were in Clovis and we were in that store making a sale, and you thought you saw Bill Lockett drive by.
Yeah,
Well, I would know him if I saw him. So. And then a lady came in the store that the energy shifted when these two women walked in the store we were selling to. And this one woman kept hiding her face, and then later we thought it could be Jackie Freeman. And then we made a little bit of money. We drove to Portales, and our store there was not there. And we're in this void of like, we've got payments due and our online sales are either not coming through or they're being delayed. And it's July, so I mean, this is normal July and August. But so anyway, I Googled and there was a store in Clovis that was open till 8. So we drove back to Clovis, and it was on 7th Street, and we didn't know about it. It was a new store that we found. And the only way to park in their parking space was to pull in the parking lot and back in because of the way everybody was parked crazy. And when you came out, you said we were facing Ms. Bryant's house, and I've known her address always. I never knew where her house was though. And so you were just saying,
well,
I feel like, and you feel like too, I guess, like we were being guided there. I mean, I feel like spirits led us to that place and meet back into that parking place, because I feel like we were there for a reason.
I didn't even know we were there.
I feel like we got guided there for some reason. And you looked up and said, that's Miss Bryant's house. Anyway, you were just saying.
And you said, no, that couldn't be. And I said, it is. This one says 715, it's 717 Conley, that's it.
Yeah.
And, but what I was saying a while ago was the person that has from day one known all the legal, about the money, about the Bell estate and everything is Tommy Hartley, because he came to me and tried to get me to let him manage it. And
when was that?
It was a week after I signed the papers.
So you were like 20 years old or 18 years old?
I was 20.
You were 20.
The 18 was Robertson. This one is the Bell estate. And
he is a lawyer in Clovis, and he is the son of Mrs. Hartley,
yes,
who in the video lived on that street. And she's the one that I was saying had done all this stuff all of her life for battered and abused women. It could be legit, could be corrupt. I don't trust anything.
Stillwater, when I had the flashbacks and asked him if he would help me. I didn't call him because I didn't have a phone. I wrote him a note.
Yeah.
And then I called him about 2 weeks later. I walked to a phone, and he said, Bonnie, I can't help you with that. And now I think he probably had to recuse himself because he had too much information.
He was involved. Yeah.
He wasn't really involved, but he called me, and I had this entourage of young guys asking me out as soon as that money hits the railroad gossip train.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. I had broken up with Donnie, and I had gone out. No, I don't know if I'd gone out with Rusty at that time, but I was working at the barn. And Tommy called me and said, Bonnie, I want to take you out. And I said, Tommy
Hartley?
Yeah. I said, you're like 10 years younger than me. I'm not going out with you. And he said, well, come on, we can just go do something. You know, he's in, but I said, oh, he just kept arguing with me, so I said, okay.
It wasn't 10 years younger, because he wouldn't have been 10 years old.
Oh, 20. Okay, he wasn't that much younger than me, I guess. I thought he was. Teddy Hartley, his brother, was about 2 years older than me. Maybe he was only like 18, I don't know. But I'd known him all his life, okay? And he said, when we started driving, he said, son, I can't remember what he said. It was real silly. It was, we want to get together, me and you. We want to get together. And I said, Tommy, and he said, I said, I'm not doing this. And he said, it's okay. He gave me that excuse that his mother was 20 years older than his dad and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And tried to get me to do that with, I can't remember the conversation exactly, but he wanted to manage that money, really, is what he wanted to do. But, you know, they came from every angle, these guys. But anyway, he was one of them. But I told him I'd already turned it over to Bill. And, you know, I could have switched it right then, and I should have. He was a lawyer, but I didn't. I just thought he was a kid.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Was he a lawyer at that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were.
So he had to be older, because he...
Well, I was 21, and he was studying to be a lawyer, maybe. I don't know, Angie. You know, they kept me working 90 hours a week. I just, you know, I was in a fog. But Teddy was older than that, and maybe they weren't. Maybe they couldn't be yet.
Mm-mm.
They were just in school. But he wanted into that inheritance.
I knew who Mrs. Hartley was. She's the one who dropped the food box off on our doorstep that time when we first moved back to Clovis.
Tommy and said, and he was
Yeah.
a lawyer then. I said, Tommy, your mom just dropped this off, and I said, I don't cook. I said, I work from 5:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night. I never have time to cook. And I said, I know that she helps people all the time.
Yeah.
But I said, when I called her and said, did you see those 2 new cars in the driveway? I don't need this kind of help.
Yeah.
And I'm sure somebody does. And I said, I wish you'd pick it up and give it to somebody. And he said, Bonnie, she's kind of off her
Being.
Yeah, right now. He said, we're going to have to do something with her, because she had just done that her whole life, is help people out.
Yeah.
And then she called me wanting me to talk to those people in that Sunday school class that were just feeding off the church, and see if I could get them to get jobs like I did, you know.
Yeah.
She said, you've had a lot better jobs than you have right now, but you're working day and night.
Is she the one, when you were, I guess it was late, I don't know if it was when you were at Miss Bryant's or later, after it became public that you were raped. I mean, maybe it was when Chalk and Grady went up, I don't know.
Chalk didn't go up,
Grady did. Okay, but my question is she the one who is, at some point, they got you going to church all the time?
The judge told Ruth that she would have me in church every time the door was open.
And that was that was after Ruth married Leonard, right?
Oh yeah.
And Miss Hartley was involved in that church.
Yeah. Miss Hartley was the go-between from the church to our house.
Right.
She was assigned to come and check on me every Wednesday, and she would come in the door. We'd be sitting there eating. We'd have a big pot of stew on the middle of the table, and she would say, "That's what we did at the ranch. We always just put a pot in the middle of the table, and everybody got a bowl."
Yeah, she was the wealthy lady in town.
She was real earthy.
And she raised her sons, or I guess they lived in a house around Miss Bryant's when you were there?
When they were little.
Yeah.
They had a little house like South Lee, a little tiny house. And they lived there. There were the Hartleys, the Gores, which is also another lawyer.
Yeah.
Grotho.
The doctor.
Yeah.
And he was your doctor always.
Yeah, Mr. Gore.
He was your pediatrician even when you were 20.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital when Ruth pulled that stunt to break me up with Donnie. She was getting that fake
hysterectomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the doctor came out of the hospital. I was outside, and he came out of the hospital. Dr. Thomas came out of where he had operated on her and said, "See, Ruth, I told you that was not necessary. She did it to just to stall the wedding until Donnie would get sent to
Vietnam."
Well, he didn't go to Vietnam. He went to California. He never got out.
He was in the military, though. He was drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And They handed me the bottle, those little things that they put in your veins, were glass at that time. They handed me that to carry in that room, and I passed out on the floor.
But you passed out all the time from the time you were a little kid.
Yeah, but when I passed out, they said, "Who's your doctor?" And I said, "Dr. Protho." They said, "Only you're 21. He can't be your doctor." I said, "He is my doctor."
Yeah.
And the hospital nailed him on
And
that.
Dr. Protho was your doctor even at Miss Bryant's house?
No, he wasn't there. He was
But he lived there.
He lived there, but he was,
Okay.
I guess, in school still.
Oh.
But as soon as he became a pediatrician, my grandfather got in touch with Ruth and said that will be her doctor from now on, and he paid the bill. Cliff's dad.
And you fainted all the time when you were a little
Oh yeah,
kid?
all the time.
How old were you the first time you remember fainting?
I was at Miss Bryant's house. I was about probably 5, and we went to the little house that Mom bought. She bought from on South Lee. She bought from Mrs. Bryant's oldest daughter. Her name was Jessie. And we went out there. Mrs. Bryant took me out there. We went out there to talk to her about getting that deal done for Mom so she'd have a place to live. And I fainted, and my hand went in the open fire stove and burned my hand really bad, and I had a scar on it forever. That's the first time that I remember fainting.
And that was where were you? At Miss Bryant's house? Or
Yeah, I was at that little house on South Lee.
South Lee,
Mrs.
okay.
Bryant, we went out there to talk to her about selling that to Mom.
And then when you were a kid, do you remember, like, would you faint once a year? Or?
Oh no, I fainted all the time. Ruth quizzed
Once a
me.
month?
Well, I don't know, Angie.
More than once a year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruth asked me one time when I was back there after the divorce, before I remembered all this, or I wouldn't have ever gone back. She asked me if anything was going on with me when I fainted there and my hand went in the fire. So I think I fainted. You know, I blocked those
Attacks
out.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I got to where I just fainted after they threatened me and told me, you know, I didn't have any choice.
Do you remember what was going on? I mean, you guys were just there talking about the house, so there wasn't anything
it was real
that...
warm, and that has, as far as I know, there wasn't anything going on.
Huh.
That, you know, I don't. She quizzed me about that too. She thought something was.
Well, I know from the time of the flashbacks, and I remember teaching you to meditate at that time, but you just slip out of body just totally easily.
Real easy. I still can do that.
Yeah, you just totally, and that goes back to the assaults when you were a kid. Because that's common with kids who were sexually assaulted when they or severely abused when they were really young, because you have to escape the pain. You also have unreal tolerance for pain.
Yeah. The doctor,
you don't feel physical pain.
The doctor said that, well, Ruth beat me after Grady got put in jail. She beat me every single day that I came in for 4 years, because he was in jail for 4 years, and I was going to pay for making too much noise, and the neighbor heard it, and they turned him in.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was a brutal bitch. I
mean, Clyde came in one time and caught her beating you.
Well, he and Wanda, when he got out of the Navy, they came to visit Ruth, and they were sitting in the living room, and she
this was on South Lee.
Yeah, and she wanted to exploit me in any way she could. And I came in from school, and she said, "Get in there and get ready. It's time for your beating." That's what she would say to me every day. And I would take off my blouse, and she would beat me. And one time, I don't know if Rusty would remember this, but one time when we lived on 50th Street, and we'd been married only about maybe 3 years, he said, "Bonnie, were you ever beaten?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "You have hash marks on your back like a slave." And I said, we didn't have mirrors then where you could see the back. And I said, "Where? What are you talking about?" He said, "We were fixing to go out and eat." He said, "Let's just go eat." Because anytime they quizzed me about anything, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, and they thought I was just lying.
Yeah.
His mother used to quiz me all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything. I didn't remember anything. I blocked it all out.
Yeah.
'Cause that, the money, everything.
Yeah. No, I remember when you had the flashbacks, you just literally relived every single assault
Yeah.
for years. Just, yeah.
Because it just came through. What it did to me was I could see this little kid that I didn't relate to,
Mm-hmm.
and that I couldn't believe someone would do that to a child. I was
Yeah.
3 years old, and that to show you how crass Bill Lockett is, I didn't show you that, but across 7th Street, on the catty corner, is where Bud Stebbins' laundry was, and they were the one that owned the house on 5-Way Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill grew up there. He didn't totally grow up there, but like in junior high, he went there and lived with Bud. And when they turned 18, that was their 18th to come to Miss Bryant's house. And
Yeah.
and when he told me about that at the paint store that day, I didn't know what he was talking about, but I couldn't talk.
And what did he say to you?
He said we'd always have a Coke in the afternoon. He went and got our Cokes. We have a fridge in the back. And he said, Bonnie, I didn't know that you were the girl that was at Miss Bryant's house. And I said, yeah, she was our babysitter. And he said, boy, I went there one time when I was 18. Me and Bud, we were just going to go check that place out. And you were doing awful nice things to the men. And when he said that, I tried to talk, and just garble came out. I couldn't talk. And I went flying to the bathroom. And I just sat there forever. And when I came back, he said, I will never, ever, ever mention that again.
Yeah.
And I went home and told Ruth what he said. I said, I don't know what he was talking about, but it was so strange because nothing would come out of my mouth. I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And so she went flying in there the next morning saying, I didn't know, and I didn't know. I'm not, lying sack shit.
Yeah.